When I think of single-use products, my mind goes to one thing. This cannot be good for the environment, right?
In 2024 alone, the world generated more than 220 tons of plastic waste, and more than 79 million tons of that came from single-use products.
So, how do we turn this around? Can we rethink the way we use and produce, and what does the role of the companies in this industry have?
And joining us today is someone who's right at the center of the conversation, Erik Lindroth, the Sustainability Director at Duni Group.
Welcome back to The Switch.
To a green economy. Christina, we're back in the studio.
We are, and this is The Switch Game On. This is the format where we entertain, where we educate, and maybe even put our guests to the test. Throughout the season, we will actually have chances to collect energy points. So let's see where our guest will end up today.
Yes, and speaking of guests, it's time to welcome today's expert, Erik Lindroth, the Sustainability Director at Duni Group. Welcome, Erik.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks a lot, Christina. Very happy to be here.
So are we. Erik, before we throw you into the speed round, we will ease you up with a little bit of a warm-up. Are you ready for that?
Let's shoot.
Okay, you got 50 seconds to tell us about your mission and what Duni Group actually does.
Well, Duni Group, we're a company, a Swedish-based company. We're passionate about food occasions, dining occasions. So we really want to make sure that when you decide to eat and drink, that you get the maximum experience and enjoyment from that. To do that, we have two businesses. We have a dining solutions area where we produce napkins, table covers, everything for the set table, lighting and so on. And the second one is packaging solutions, where we have solutions for takeaway, food, single use, but also increasingly reuse. So we really want to make sure that we want to see the future as being a bit better with us around than with us not being around. So we have hopefully some confidence in we're heading in the right direction.
You did it in under 50 seconds. That's like a big applause. Not many people actually do that, so congratulations. I think you're actually ready to move into the next round.
Welcome to the speed round, where we fire quick questions and want quick answers, Erik. So no time to overthink.
There are no right or wrong answers here, but if you impress us, who knows? You might earn an extra energy point, Erik. So are you ready?
Absolutely, let's go.
All right, so let's take the first question. What's the most exciting sustainability project you're working on right now?
Right now, we are working on developing a CO2 calculator for our whole portfolio, so we can share consistent CO2 data with our customers and make it part of our success story also commercially. I think that's really, really exciting.
Exciting. Coffee cup or reusable mug? What's in your hands most of the days?
Most days I'm in the office or working from home, so it's a normal coffee cup, porcelain or glass sometimes.
Very good. Erik, is compostable always better than recyclable?
No, you can't say that. I think it's a systems question. So if you have a system to collect and take care of compostable packaging and products, I think that can work just fine. But I think the systems are much more developed for recyclable solutions. So I would say that that's probably the better way forward.
Thank you. I would like to hear one word to describe the biggest challenge in sustainability today.
Oh, I would have to go with fact resistance. I mean, if we cannot agree on the facts, how can we then have meaningful action driving forward? So I think that's a challenge for society, but also for sustainability.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely worth an energy point.
I think so too. Yeah. We'll see. We'll calculate them afterwards.
Yeah,
don't worry.
All right. So, Erik, do you believe in carbon offsetting? Yes or no?
Not really. I think there is so much more to be done for all companies to actually cut your carbon emissions before you start looking at offsetting or neutralizing. So long term, maybe there are some solutions, but today, no. I think it's focused on reducing the impact that you have.
Yeah.
My favorite question, Erik. Are you ready? What's your personal eco-guilty pleasure?
Wow. Yeah, I would say probably I can enjoy a well-cooked steak sometimes. So red meat, we know that we should cut our dependency on it, but it's a guilty pleasure, a well-grilled steak with a nice salad on a nice summer day.
Good. At least you add the salad by the side. That's better than just a steak and everything.
What's your, Christina?
Well, everybody knows it's grapes. So I eat them all year round, and they travel from all kinds of places in the world, which is not good either, right?
That's true. Next question then. So, Erik, circular economy, buzzword or real solution?
It's a needed solution, but I think it takes the shape of a buzzword sometimes when you don't really attach it to the systems and the volume of materials that needs to be circulated.
Okay, if you could ban one material tomorrow, which one would it be?
I guess I would go with PVC, plastic. Not great in production and not great in use, and it's mostly not recyclable either. So PVC I would go with.
And Erik, the last one. If you would finish this sentence, the future of single-use products is?
Dependent on good design and good material choices.
Oh, good work. Very, very high bar for everybody else coming in and doing these speed rounds, Erik. Good job.
Thanks a lot. Good fun.
So we have time to circle back on one of these. And one answer that you took that I wanted to dive more into was when you got the question circular economy buzzword or real solution. So why did you answer as you did? What's the background to your answer?
Well, to talk a little bit more about it, I think circularity and the circular economy is really important to get traction and to get meaningful progress. But I think what we can see today and also historically is that it's been sort of landed only in the end of life discussions, the recyclable, the waste discussions. Those are important, but I think it's equally important to also to have a start of life mindset, to think about what is the design of the product and what is the material that we decide to use for this product. Because if we go wrong there, it doesn't matter how efficient collection and recycling system you have, you've started on the wrong footing. Yeah. So I think here it's easy to get hooked up on only collection and recycling. It is really important to get those systems in place, but you need to start from the right end of this. And I think that's lacking quite a lot in regulation from the EU and also national regulation that just focus on recycling. But renewable materials from well-managed sources, certified sources, I think is a good starting point when it comes to material choices, for example. Yeah.
But hasn't the word been emptied out? I mean, it is a great word, as you said, if you put it into a system and so on, but it feels like it's been so emptied out by everybody using it and not having, a real case on it where it actually is successful.
Yeah, I think the problem is that it is quite a complex question, and that doesn't help, of course, but I think there are some aspects to think about it. If you think about, recycling, for example, as one topic, it actually, to have something that's going to be recyclable, you need 4 things to happen. And number 1, you need to have engaged consumers that believe that they're doing the right thing, so they return their used packaging, for example. Number 2, you need a collection system where they can drop it off. So practical, where do I drop this package? Number 3, you need a functioning market so that the collected material can then move between actors and with a value attached to it. And finally, you need technical recycling capacity. So you need plants where you take in this as a raw material, you process it, you upgrade it, and it becomes a new material that you can use for new products. So 4 things that you really need to work in unison. If only one of these is not in place, the product is not recyclable. Yeah. I think that's what we can see in many cases, like you say for textiles. I mean, now we're lacking technical recycling capacity for that material. It's a tough question.
Yeah, but I think you explain it in a very good way, and it doesn't sound that difficult. What, in your opinion, is the critical thing of these 4 to get it to actually work, or what's necessary? Because I think everyone around us want to have both a circular economy and a more sustainable planet, right? So what is lacking for us to manage these 4?
Yeah, I think it's probably mostly linked to the collection system. That's not really working as it should. So it's not easy and convenient for me as a consumer to drop off a single-use package, like a salad box or a coffee cup. So it ends up in general public waste. And then there is no way today to sort that into different materials. I think it would be great if we could find a solution that does that in an efficient way. So that material that we throw away as trash, that it's actually turned into something useful. I heard a great quote once that said that waste and trash is where your imagination stops. So I guess we need some more imagination in the world today.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Erik, with the work you and your team are doing at Duni, what are you most proud of?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. So many things, but I think if I have to pick one, I would say that the systematic and methodological approach we have to sustainability. So if I give an example, when we set our ambition around climate 4 years ago, we said we really want to get a science-based target in place and approved. And that was a huge amount of work to do to create data or to collect data. But before then, to talk about the methodology. So how are we going to do this? Because climate change or climate data comes in different forms, depending if it's the commuting of employees or if it's the material in our products or the end of life and so on. So the methodology is very different. So we spent a lot of time on thinking about methodological questions. It's a little bit academic maybe. But then we went out and collected data and put it all together. And that produced a really good picture of our climate impact from our company and from our products. And then that also enables us to take a more structured discussion around how can we reduce it further? And now we're in the process of producing a CO2 calculator as well that we can share performance with our customers.
When you saw all the results, capturing the data and everything, were you surprised with the facts that you got in front of you?
I think most companies doing this properly are surprised by the large share of scope 3 emissions. So what is outside your company's control, direct control. You normally think that if you're a producing company, you're using a lot of energy in your production, transports and things like this. But actually, frequently, it's less than 10% of the total. So I think the surprise for everyone is how important the rest of the value chain is, especially the materials in the products. That's what the main thing is.
Yeah. And for the listener now, we have scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So
yeah, scope 1 is the actual emissions. So if we use LPG gas in drying the tissue for our napkins, for example, that is a scope 1 emission when we burn that. But scope 2 is then emissions from purchased electricity. So it's emitted somewhere else, but we use the electricity in our factory. And then scope 3 is, as you say, is the rest of the value chain.
Yeah. No, and Erik, I think it's super interesting that you put data on it. And how have you worked with your own team and the rest of the people within Duni Group do you get them to jack into this, and does it become part of the culture to actually solve this? Or it would be interesting to hear your reflections on that.
Yeah, I think, if you really want to have meaningful progress, you of course have to realize your responsibility is quite limited, or your capability. So you absolutely need to work cross-functionally and integrated in the way you work as a company, how you innovate, how you produce, and how you sell your products. And I think we've been quite successful at that at Duni. So it's a shared responsibility, where, for example, our factory manager in our paper mill, Lars, has taken this to his heart and is driving really hard on reducing the impact from our paper mill. And the same goes for the rest of the producing organization in our company. So coming back to what we're proud of, I think that's also something to be very proud of, is that it's really been integrated in the company, and we're able to drive meaningful progress in many spaces. So we can see a massive reduction, or massive, but pretty big reduction in our climate emissions from the base year 2019. So we should be happy. So far, so good, but there's a lot of work still to be done, of course.
And talking about results, as you went into this discovery phase and decided, what were the goals that you set to go for together as a company?
So we've set a long-term ambition for the company to become and remain a trusted sustainability leader. We think that this is key for us to be relevant in the marketplace, not only to customers, but to other key stakeholders. To get there, we decided to divide our work into 3 initiatives. Going net zero, becoming circular at scale, and then living the change. So those are three headlines, you could say. In becoming circular at scale, it's all about choosing better materials, finding end-of-life solutions, and building a strong base of circularity. The KPI we use here today is the share of virgin fossil plastics that we use in our products, and we want to cut this by 50% until this year. On climate, it is to start with scope 1 and 2, but now also scope 3, and we have a science-based target, so we know what we need to do. And living the change is the social aspect, how we are as an employer, as a member in society, that we step up and really drive the change. And the way we measure it, the KPI that we have today is the score in the EcoVadis independent system, where we want to get to a platinum level, top 1% in our industry. We are top 3% this year, so we're playing in the Premier League now.
Yeah.
It's hard to get the final percentage points. So that's a way to sort of break it down from a top level ambition to, okay, so what are the KPIs? What do we measure?
Yeah.
Which one of these do you think is most difficult, Alex, out of these three? What do you say? Circularity, netto zero, or living the change?
I would say living the change. It's easy to put up a net zero target. It's easy to, look at how you can build your own company into a circular system, but actually getting all people in the organization, all the suppliers that you have, and then the next stage also to jack into that, I would say, is what I believe is the hardest part.
Is he right, Erik?
No, I agree, Alex. I think you're right.
One final, do you see that you can actually make better business by doing this job?
In sustainability, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's a three-step process where you need to start with trying to understand the world around you, your key stakeholders. So that's what we would call a materiality assessment. So really understand what's important. Then to start to do something about it, to really make a difference, to take new decisions, to make change, and then you really drive forward in those areas that make sense. And then the final point, which is perhaps the most difficult one, is the communication part. So you actually need to go back to your customers and other key stakeholders and tell them what you've done, and do it in a consistent and credible way, and not get into greenwashing. But if you can do that, I think there is a lot of opportunities to build strength from a business perspective from your sustainability work. And finally, I mean, the classical definition of sustainability is the triple bottom line. So people, planet, profit. We tend to forget about the profit part, but if you don't make a business out of it, you're not going to be around as a company. So you need to have all those three legs in place.
It does, and I really like that you can use it to actually drive better and more profitable business as well.
So these were very interesting answers we got. What would you say is the actual energy point you earned for this segment, Alex?
Yeah, I would say a lot, but you're the judge, Christina. So.
Okay, so we had a bit of a conversation here. So our producer said 3, you said
5.
5. So I say 4 points goes to Erik for great answers, transparent and easy to understand. We like those kind of things.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate the points.
Do you feel that we were good with the points? Were we generous, or would you like more?
I feel pretty good. I feel like Super Mario now, so I got some extra
Good.
And if you reach 10 points, then you get a free trip to Iceland to visit the geothermal power plant.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow.
There you go. Only that. Great. It is time to move into the next segment. All right, Erik, it is time for fact or fiction.
And here's how it works. We throw some common claims or myths your way. You tell us, is it fact, is solid as steel, or is it fiction, needs some serious rethinking?
And just like before, no pressure, but please impress us, because you could rack up your energy points.
All right, Erik. So first question. Bioplastics always break down naturally in the environment.
Well, that's mostly fiction. Bioplastic as a term, it can be different things. So bioplastic means that it comes from a biological source. So it's the raw material. You have biodegradable plastics, and that's a different thing. That is what happens at end of life. So does it degrade? And then it can be done industrially or home compost. So if it's home compost certified you could say that it breaks down naturally in the environment because it would break down in your home compost in your backyard.
Correct. The next one. Paper is always more sustainable than plastic, especially for food packaging.
Oh, fact or fiction? Is there an in between? Friction. Well, it depends on how you define sustainable, to be honest. But in general, I would say paper or a renewable raw material like paper is a better choice than a fossil plastic raw material simply because fossil plastic is built on fossil raw materials. I mean, oil, gas, coal that you drill up from the ground. And at some point that gets emitted to the atmosphere. That's where you get the net emission or addition of CO2 to the atmosphere and one of the main causes of climate change. So I think whatever you can do to go renewable is probably going to be better.
I've heard that paper packaging may also need plastic linings and complicating recycling and so on. Is that correct?
Yes, if you want to contain a liquid in a paper package, naturally you need some kind of barrier to contain the liquid. So you would use the paper to give structure and strength to the package, and then you would have a thin layer of plastic lining or laminate to contain the liquid.
But if you had to choose forever and ever, paper or plastic, what would you choose?
I would go, in general, we have a direction for material choice that paper when possible and plastic when necessary. So it's a way to do you really need plastic? Do you need it? Then absolutely we should use it. You use the right type of plastic, but go with paper every time of the day when you can, I would say.
Very good. So Erik, the next question here. Reusable products need to be used many times to beat disposables in carbon footprint. Fact?
Absolute fact.
Yeah.
Let's just take a normal plastic cup you have as a reusable that typically weighs 50 grams. And you have a paper cup with a plastic liner with 1 gram of plastic. So if you don't want to generate more plastic waste, you need to reuse the plastic cup 50 times, right?
Yeah.
And then for an LCA, life cycle assessment, to do the carbon footprint, there are many other things that comes in. But yes, typically you need definitely more than 20, 30 times for the system to generate the reuse for a plastic cup.
This one. Recycling is the best solution for plastic waste, even for single-use food packaging.
I would say fiction on that because there's one thing called the waste hierarchy, and the first step you do is to reduce or remove. So the best solution is actually to remove the plastic you can in the first place. Then you don't need to worry about what happens to it because you don't use it. But then further down the path, of course, recycling is an absolutely necessary a way to keep the material circulating in the economy. So I would say it's still a very needed solution. But cut what you don't need first. That's better.
All right, so let's move on to the last one. So switching from plastic to plant-based materials always lower the carbon footprint.
Friction, I would say there.
Yeah.
Again, it convolutes a little bit the topic because plastic, well, it's different types of plastic. So you can have bioplastic, bio-based. So that is plant-based. So if you would have, for example, polyethylene can produce from bioethanol that you get from sugarcane. So that's a renewable plastic, and that's much better than the fossil version. But in general, I would say plant-based meaning renewable or growing raw materials in general is a better solution for climate impact. And the main reason here as well is that the actual production of paper, for example, is simpler than plastic production. So it's less complex. It requires less energy, and therefore it's also good from that perspective.
I think it's interesting with the renewable plastic part, like just to get an idea the size, because when you talk about the plus 220 million tons of plastic waste, like how much of that is renewable plastic? I'm guessing it's just a friction, but do you have the numbers?
Typically, the industry says it's around 1 to 2%, so it's still a very small part.
And is it possible to increase that percentage, and what's necessary?
It is, but it requires technology development. I mean, essentially anything that contains carbon could be harvested and recaptured and turned into a raw material for plastic. So even paper you could with the right technology, turn into ethanol and then into plastic. But then it requires a lot of energy. Yeah. So it's possible. I think the other part here, and we didn't talk so much about that, but recycled plastic is a lot of prominence in regulation today. The problem is that when it comes to food contact products like packaging, there's very little plastic that can be used as recycled in contact with food. The only real volume item here is PET that turn into recycled PET products. And all our PET products, for example, are made from recycled PET. Yeah. But polyethylene, polypropylene, the big polyolefin plastics, there is very, very little available in terms of food grade approved plastic. So that's keeping us from moving forward.
Actually, Erik, there is one more question, but Alex didn't dare to ask you this one because it's a bit, provocative asking this to Duni. Single-use products can never be a part of the circular economy. Fiction?
Oh, that's fiction. That's fiction. And I think it comes back to, we had a brief discussion before about the systems perspective. So a single-use product, if you have a collection and recycling system in place, you can make use of that material in your product. So it can actually very well fit into a circular economy, as can reuse. And we have a lot of work ongoing here in reuse. But again, as we talked about before, you need the number of cycles to make sure that it's coming back and being used again and again. So the challenge is a little bit different depending on what type of product you're selling and using. But they have that in common, that you need a proper system in place. Otherwise, a product in itself cannot be circular, but it can be part of a circular system. Yeah. And that system will look a bit different.
Okay, Erik, we are not letting you off the hook just yet.
No, let's move into the energy crisis section. This is where we throw a real-world scenario at you. And I read that you guys have made a new deal with the Sweden Rock Festival and the music industry. And this is very dear to my heart. I started my career working for music festivals in Värmland. So, the real case scenario, you have one of these music festivals with more than 50,000 people that produces a huge amount of waste, right? And most of it comes from single-use products. So how can you support them to reach net zero?
The clock is ticking and there are energy points at the line, Erik. How do you help them get there?
Wow, what a fantastic challenge. So first of all, of course, deciding on the right product. So it should be well-designed and well-functioning products that can also be collected and recycled. So like, for example, what we produce at Duni Group. But other than that, I think you need a really good collection system that is convenient for visitors, visible and available when I've finished my food or drink. So you need a really good collection system, and then you also need to partner with a local recycling mill or a company that can actually turn into new products. So that's important. You need to engage visitors and guests. So why not, bring in 200 waste champions or recycling champions, volunteers that spend a few hours on this, and then they get to see the festival for free. And finally, I believe a lot in heroes. So why not create a zero waste hero that get free tickets for next year's festival, backstage pass, a real royal treatment, and then you use that person to drive engagement.
Zero waste heroes. I love that.
Well done, Erik. Well done. I am impressed. What about you?
I'm very impressed, and I think if you made it extremely clear, like the right product, the collection system, the collaboration with the recycler, engaging the guests, and then create the heroes.
Let's just copy paste that for everyone. Here we go. Sweden Rock Festival.
All right, Erik, you made it through the speed round, the fact and fiction, and the energy crisis.
And yes, we have been keeping track of your energy points.
Or Emil have been keeping track of the energy points.
Yeah, thank you, Emil, for keeping track of the energy points.
And thank you for great answers. I think, Emil, we calculated to points, right?
You can't do it like that. You just need to do the...
I do?
Like,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the energy points for Erik and Duni are...
12 points!
Whoa! I need to coach him some, but it's okay. I am very excited and happy about that. Let's see where you end up by the end of season, Erik, in comparison to other people who will join us here at The Switch. So, with that said, I just wanted to give you a final question. What gives you hope of the future of sustainability, Erik? Let's end on a hopeful note.
Yeah. You know what gives me hope is, I mean, we had one blocker before we talked about fact resistance, but I think the focus on truth and fact and the benefit of doing that, I think, is giving me hope, and especially when it comes to the academic community, the researchers, the experts that dedicate their life and their time to these important questions, and to enable them to get through with their conclusions, and also sometimes uncomfortable discussions is giving me hope. I really can see that you can't hide from facts. You can do it for a while, but in the end, when you see the challenges we have and the facts behind it, I think that can really drive energy into the discussion and into the transition to a more sustainable future. So, yeah, that gives me hope.
Well, that gives me hope too, especially when a person like you and a company like Duni are actually doing that work and being the role models we need to have everywhere in the world, actually. Thank you, Erik, and thank you for joining us here.
And that's it for this time. Game on.
See you next time, and as I usually say, take care of yourself, and if you can, Emil. Thank you.
Thank you, Emil.